Hello friends, this is Amir Malik. Today we are going to discuss autoboxing and unboxing in Java. Autoboxing is a feature in Java which converts primitive data type into its relevant wrapper class automatically and implicitly. And similarly, unboxing is the feature which converts wrapper class into its primitive data type automatically and implicitly. But what is autoboxing? What is unboxing? Why we have to use primitive data types or wrapper class? And what is the difference between primitive and wrapper class? I think before moving towards autoboxing and unboxing, we should discuss primitive data types and wrapper classes. You're already familiar with lots of primitive types and you have already used them in your codes like boolean or byte or int like int, double. We have used all these primitive types in lots of codes. Similarly, if you recall array list, yes, array list, then you can remember that as array list is an array of objects only, so we never use int here, like in these angle brackets we never used int or double with small d. No, we never, because these are objects, these are wrapper classes. Integer with capital I, double with capital D. These are wrapper classes and we use them in array list. And primitive data types like int, boolean with small b or double with small d, they are used in normal arrays or 2D arrays. So in Java we have these primitive types: boolean, byte, char, float, int, long, short, and double, and they have their relevant wrapper classes. And the only difference you can just view here is boolean with small b or boolean with capital B. So all the wrapper classes, they have the same names, but they start with the capital letter. So this is one of the major difference between a primitive data type and a wrapper class. But you should know that boolean data type or boolean primitive type is basically part of this wrapper class boolean with capital B. And similarly, byte, its relevant wrapper class is byte with capital B, and int is basically part of integer wrapper class, integer with capital I. So this is the very normal difference between a primitive data type and a wrapper class. But obviously there should be some in detail differences between primitive types and wrapper classes. So what are those differences? Let's discuss. If you look at this diagram, you can see that object is basically classified into number, boolean, and character, and then they are like all the numbers are further classified into byte, short, integer, long, float, and double. And then they have their primitive data types written under them. So basically, a wrapper class can be called as an object. Yes, wrapper class is basically a reference object. So a wrapper class can be called as an object which encapsulates its relevant primitive data type. So basically, integer with capital I, it's an object and it encapsulates its primitive data type, which is int. And similarly, double with capital D encapsulates its relevant primitive data type, which is double with small d. So a very important difference between a wrapper class and a primitive type is a wrapper class is an object which encapsulates its related or its relevant primitive data type. Wrapper classes are reference data types, so they can be treated as objects, while primitive data types are not reference data types, so you cannot call them object. So this is the biggest difference between a wrapper class and a primitive type. Another difference is wrapper objects are immutable. When a wrapper object gets its value modified, the compiler creates a new object and then reassign the object to the original value. So if you look at this code, public void incr, like for increment, and we are passing it a parameter which is a primitive data type integer a. So basically the parameter is a type of an object, integer, a wrapper class, and its name is a. Now when we are incrementing it in the code, a is equal to a plus 1, we are giving it an increment. So whenever it will get an increment, the compiler will create a new object. Yes, compiler will create a new object every time. So what will happen? It will produce like lots of garbage collection of objects. So this is one drawback, that we don't use wrapper classes in normal codes. So if we don't want lots of garbage collection of object, what we can do is simply pass the parameter as int a. So now it's a primitive data type which is assigned to this method, and now when it will get its increment, a new object will not be created every time, and it will not produce garbage collection of object. Another difference is the default value of a wrapper data type is always null. So they are nullable. Their default type or default value is null. But for primitive data types, default values are different. For every data type, for every primitive data type, default value is different. For example, for byte it is 0, for int it is 0, but for double it is 0.0, and for boolean it is false, and you can see lots of other default values. So this is another difference between primitive data type and wrapper class. And as we have already discussed, that in array list we always use wrapper classes, not primitive data types. So if we have declared an array list mylist, its type is a wrapper class integer, and when we have to add values to this array list, we can use this mylist method, mylist dot add method, mylist dot add 11, mylist dot add 22. Then these values will be added to the array list. But this 11 and this 22, these are not objects. These are like integer values, like int values. So in this case, this int 11 is automatically converted or upgraded to its related or relevant wrapper class, which is integer, and it is done automatically, implicitly. You don't need to write any code for this, because this is an advanced feature of Java in Java 5.1. So users, they don't need to write any code for this conversion. This autoboxing and this unboxing is done automatically and implicitly. So when a simple primitive data type is converted or upgraded into its related or relevant wrapper class, this is called autoboxing. So I think now it's easy for you to understand what is autoboxing, what is unboxing. So when automatic conversion of primitive type happens, that like it is converted into its corresponding wrapper class, then we call it autoboxing. So when int is converted to integer, double with small d is converted into double with capital D. So all these examples are for autoboxing. We simply call it boxing as well. If you find the word boxing, you don't need to get confused about it. Autoboxing or boxing, it's same. And its opposite is unboxing. So autoboxing is from primitive data type to wrapper class. So unboxing is from wrapper class to its primitive type. So if you convert integer to int, so if you convert integer to int, this is basically unboxing. Or double, like with capital D, to double with small d, from wrapper class to its corresponding primitive type, then it is called unboxing. And you don't need to write any code for this. This is automatically done by Java compiler, automatically and implicitly. So you don't need to, get worried about it, how we're going to do this. So autoboxing and unboxing is done automatically by Java compiler. So now it's time to discuss a code. And you can see it's a main class, and it has two methods. One is like main method, and the other method is auto method. And it has one parameter, and the type is the wrapper class integer, and the name of the parameter is num. Now we are calling this method from the main method, and we are just writing its name and giving it a value 15, which is basically int value, integer. No, it's not an object, it's not a wrapper class object, it's just an int value. So when we pass this int value, even though we should have given it some wrapper class object type, but this method was expecting an object to be passed, but we are passing it an int value. So this program will not give us any error, because Java compiler will do it automatically and will convert this int 15 to this wrapper class integer. Okay, so let's run this program, and obviously it will print primitive data type to wrapper class and then 15. Okay, see, so primitive data type to wrapper class and 15 is the answer. So this is the way your primitive type is automatically converted into its wrapper class. Now this example is for unboxing. In this case, we have a method unmethod, and it expects that some int value should be passed to it, because its parameter in its parameter list we have one parameter int num, so it's primitive type num. Now we are calling it in the main method. In the main method, we have created an object for the wrapper class integer. Integer is the wrapper class, inum is its object, and its value is 100. So we are created an object with the value 100, and we are calling this method unmethod, and we are passing it with the wrapper class object inum. We are not giving it or passing its required int value. It was expecting that some int value will be passed to me, but we are passing a wrapper class object to it. So still this program will not give any error, because compiler will automatically convert this wrapper class object to its related primitive type int. So this is unboxing. Clear? So that was all about autoboxing and unboxing in Java. If you have any query, you can write in the comment section. And last but very important thing, don't forget to watch my videos, like my videos, and most importantly, subscribe my YouTube channel for lots of IT related stuff and lots of things about Java. In the next video, I'll come with something new about Java, or maybe something new about IT. Till then, take care of yourself and have a nice day.